right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for this Spartan Share Series installment on diversity, inclusion, and social justice issues. Before we get started, we just want to go over a few housekeeping rules, technology tips so that you're successful in today's session. First, this is a recorded session, and we will make this available to everyone to share with friends and others after the live airing. If you are an attendee, when you logged in, you will notice that you are all muted. I will unmute everyone once we start with the discussion. We want today to be a true dialogue. So once we do that, you'll be able to contribute to the conversation. Also, if you're an attendee, though, please don't use your video feature so that it will slow down. It won't slow down the stream. We will also, if at any time you want to send a question but you don't want to verbally ask it, you can use the Q&A feature. There's a couple of ways you'll be able to do that. If you look to the right-hand side of your screen where the video is, if you click on the icon that looks like three silhouettes of people, if you click on that, it will enlarge your screen to a full view. At the top, there's a drop-down menu. If you click on the Q&A icon, it will open up a box for you to submit your questions. If you would like to submit a question privately to me, the moderator, you can click on the chat feature, and where it says send to, you can select Crystal Josie, and I will then address your question for the panelists to answer. Now, we're going to get started. Today, we are covering a lot of heavy issues around diversity, inclusion, and social justice. We want to make sure that everyone today in attendance is respectful in your comments. We understand that there are a lot of passionate issues that we will touch on today. So without further ado, I want to introduce our panelists. First, we have Carla Fullwood. Carla Fullwood is one of the assistant directors in the Office of InterCultural Engagement here at UNCG. She is responsible for social justice education programming and student dialogue initiatives in the office. Carla's diverse experience in higher education includes roles in new student orientation, admissions, housing and residence life, campus programming, student development, and multicultural affairs. We also have joining us Dominique Harrison. Dominique is a recruitment coordinator for the College of Education at North Carolina A&T State University. Since 2009, he has worked in the field of higher education, specializing in recruitment of diverse and underrepresented populations. Dominique has also presented at national conferences on the topics of diversity and inclusion and minority male recruitment specifically. We also have joining us Dr. Julie Mendez-Smith. She's an associate professor of psychology, and she serves as the inaugural Chancellor's Fellow for Campus Climate here at UNCG. In her role, she works closely with the Chancellor to identify opportunities, develop new initiatives, and collaborate with many campus partners whose work include issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. We have Porshe Chiles, who is the Assistant Director in Intercultural Engagement as well. She received her Bachelor of Science degree in Journalism and Public Relations at the University of Texas at Tyler, and has a Master's in Higher Education Student Affairs from the University of North Texas. She has been active in the field of diversity, inclusion, and social justice for over 8 years, and her international experience includes teaching as an English teacher in Japan, coordinating study abroad exchange programs in Thailand, and she's also been one of the, she served as she had an internship where over 10,000 applicants applied, and she was selected to serve with the State Department, Porsche?
Yeah.
And lastly, we have Chief Paul Lester. Chief Paul Lester serves as the police chief here at UNCG. and he's responsible for the coordination of daily operations and managerial activities of the 3 divisions here within the police department. And after 25 years of service with UNCG Police Department, he's had the privilege to either hold a position or been involved with creating one of the positions within the department. Alongside his police career, he's also worked with the FBI National Academy and a Secret Service agent. Now, we are going to go ahead and unmute our participants. Give me one moment to do that.
Man, I lost it. No.
And we are going to go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I just want to outline a few definitions that will be brought up several times in our conversation today. The first is diversity and understanding what that is. Diversity is the range of human differences, including but not limited to race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, age, social class, physical ability or attributes, religious or ethical value systems, national origin, or political beliefs. Inclusion is an involvement and empowerment where the inherent worth and dignity of all people are recognized. An inclusive university promotes and sustains a sense of belonging, its values and practices, respect for the talent, beliefs, backgrounds, and ways of living of its members. Social justice. Social justice is a term of distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges within society across the board. You will also hear ally and advocate. An ally, to join yourself with a person or another group in order to give support. Advocate, a person who argues or works for or supports a cause or policy. And lastly, privilege. Privilege is a special right, advantage, or immunity granted or available to only a particular person or group of people. Now, the first topic we will discuss today will be Black Lives Matter. The first question is, what is Black Lives Matter, and what is the Black Lives Matter movement? Do we have any of the panelists that would like to start with contributing to that part of the discussion?
Crystal, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Thank you, Porshe.
Thanks so much. So Black Lives Matter is not just an organization, but a movement at large, and their focus is on celebrating the Black lives, Black American lives here in the U.S. and across the diaspora, but that their mission is not to say no one else matters. It's to bring light to the issues that have been plaguing the Black community here in the U.S. Since we were brought to this country. And so I believe it's their mission to address social justice, social injustices that are happening within the community, social disparities, in a way that we have not seen before, right? We had the civil rights movement that brought in a lot of awareness, and then after integration and things happened, I think that movement and that drive to address these social injustices kind of died down or tapered off a bit. And so I think they are just revamping what their ancestors long before them had started, this movement of bringing social justice and awareness to injustices within the Black community at large.
Thank you for that. And something that I think is key that you pointed out, that this is not just a moment, it's a movement. And just to give some further background, Black Lives Matter was created in 2012. Again, it was just a formalization of some things that had already transpired. And so the death of Trayvon Martin, that whole case is what kind of got this movement to be formalized and again, across chapters formed across the United States. So again, one thing I want to discuss, which you also hit on, is does Black Lives Matter mean others do not? And so if anybody would like to contribute to that, we'd love to hear some feedback on that as well.
I think that's one of the things with the name of the movement, Black Lives Matter, that I think people honestly purposely overlook that there's an implied "to" at the end. In no way, shape, or form does the Black Lives Matter movement express that only Black lives or other lives do not matter. And so I think it's a cry to say that, hey, there are specific injustices being done to Black lives, and they matter to us. And we want others to realize that we want to matter just as much as anyone else's lives. And so I think it's not telling that, or even trying to express that other lives do not matter. We just want our lives to matter as much to everyone else.
And so, Chief Lester and Julie, I'm not sure if you all could maybe provide some insight as to, maybe what campus climate is, and I know we've had several demonstrations, people protests and things of that nature by students on campus. What are some of the conversations that you are hearing, and how's that being handled? How is that message actually being communicated so that everyone actually understands that this is, the students, whether Black, white, or other, are participating in these types of peaceful protests or anything associated with the Black Lives Matter movement as they've been mobilized here at UNCG. How are we responding to it?
This is Julie. I can go first if you want. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just happy to be here today to talk. This is only my second month in this position, and I think since arriving in the Chancellor's group, we sort of have a leadership group here on campus. I've been getting to know folks who work here and think about, how to best capture UNCG's very diverse community and make sure from an inclusion perspective that we support student groups, alumni networks, faculty, staff. I mean, we take a very broad view of all of the stakeholders that play a role in our healthy campus climate. And so, this first topic on Black Lives Matter, the Chancellor released a statement recently that reaffirmed UNCG as a place for people to gather. And there have been several opportunities for people to gather, to engage in conversation, and also to engage in protest. And those are things that universities all over the country are experiencing. So we are not the only university or college or city even to sort of experience these things. As you said, this is a national movement. And what Black Lives Matter is doing to me is elevate the dialogue and to keep the focus on what can be done to solve problems between groups that historically have not been able to, for lots of different reasons, engage in conversation. And so maybe Chief Lester wants to share some things that the police have been doing to directly interact with students. They've been doing some really creative things. But I know that just from my experiences on the campus recently, I've just seen a lot of leadership among current students. There was an address last evening, I believe, from student body president, and so I just think that alumni that are participating today, maybe really want to hear about that and sort of say, that students on this campus are very engaged, and that's a really important thing to build leadership, and we'll probably get to social justice as well. But that's what I've been hearing. I've just been hearing a lot of support and thoughtful conversation about how to just create opportunities for people to be together and stand in protest if that's how they are wanting to organize.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I agree with Julie. trying to facilitate giving everyone the opportunity to have that platform to safeguard that First Amendment right to protest. You know, not just for Black Lives Matter, but for any group. I know that there have been like protests that we've had on campus, and some of them are not really protests. That's a misnomer. Some of them are just gatherings. There have been groups of students who gathered in large numbers just to express how they feel. And we've had some very successful gatherings. We did have a protest yesterday. It was a mixture of various groups. Some protest differently than others, and we just want to ensure they have that opportunity to do that. But we, as a police department, feel like we have an obligation to safeguard that First Amendment right, give them that opportunity to have that self-expression and let their feelings be known.
Thank you, Chief. Carla, from a student perspective, what have you seen in terms of the climate and the student involvement around this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I think similarly to what's been shared by my colleagues, right? We know in what we're seeing in society, there's a lot of injustice that's happening specifically towards Black people. We may say specifically even towards Black males, and I really think our students are noticing that. I think you may have some folks that are saying, yes, we're in a progressive time. We are on a progressive campus. There's, you know, lots of progress from what happened in the 60s, you know, from what Porshe referenced. However, there's still a lot of significant issues, and our students are seeing that, they're paying attention, and they're speaking out. They're recognizing that they matter. I think with the Black Lives Matter, and Dominique spoke to this too, it's Black Lives Matter too. It's not disregarding, it's knowing that there is injustice that happens to various communities, but let's kind of keep to the forefront what we're seeing happening on an everyday basis. And I think with that involvement and with that energy from our students, they're speaking out, they're engaging in conversations with each other to further unpack why are these injustices happening? Why are we perhaps seeing or paying attention to these things now in a different way than a couple of years ago? What's happening at our local level as well as institutionally? And I feel like with some of the things that our institution is doing, as well as with some of the initiatives from intercultural engagement, a lot of what Porsche and I have been working on, and I think specifically some of the initiatives or with dialogue that I'm working on, are going to continue to offer that space for students to unpack, to understand how these issues are affecting them, Black students or just or across all racial identities, because it's something that we have to understand. It's affecting us whether we know directly or indirectly. How are we having those conversations? How are we understanding what is that impact, whether it is a direct or indirect impact? How are we not just talking about it, because I know from talking to students, there's even some dissonance on why do we just, you know, why are we just talking? What are we doing beyond just talking about things? But how can we talk to get to a point of action planning, of strategizing, of working in coalition with allies and others who may serve as advocates? So how is, you know, through dialogue, through paying attention, we're, you know, offering those opportunities for our students to stay engaged so that they're raising their awareness and they're moving to that point of action, of finding solutions.
Thank you for that. As you all alluded to, there have been several gatherings and demonstrations and opportunities for people to have dialogue across campus, whether that be student, staff, alumni, or what have you. And one of the things that I am encouraged by, at least from a campus perspective, is I've had an opportunity to sit in on some of those demonstrations or some of those discussions, and it's not just the students of color who are getting involved. The demonstration that the students led, or the gathering that they had in UC, the LA University Center, on Monday, there was a very powerful moment that took place where there was a white student who walked in who appeared to not really know what was going on, and after she kind of took it in, she walked down she touched each student that was participating in that particular demonstration, whether she just shook their hand, gave them a hug, and so I think that was very powerful, and it spoke to the students that we have here in the climate of UNCG, that they are very progressive and forward-thinking, and I think that these are the people that are going to go out and really try and really be able to affect change in the community long after they leave UNCG. So that's very encouraging. So we're going to move to the next area of discussion, unless anyone from any of the attendees have anything that they would like to contribute to the conversation. Don't be shy. All right, well, we're going to go into community policing. And so the first question, which will be directed towards Chief Lester, is what is community policing and why is it important?
Community policing for us is our efforts to reach out to the community and build relationships, and it's important because that relationship that we build establishes trust. About a year ago, we began following the 21st Century Policing Guidelines that were put out by the White House. It is a series of action items and recommendations that we have, many of which we were already doing, and some of which we are trying to implement. But we know that having a relationship with the people that we are sworn to protect is important to establish trust and legitimacy in the police department, and that's what community policing is all about.
Thank you. So what are some things, because I think now more than ever, establishing and maintaining that trust with the people you serve in the community is very important. What are some things that UNCG Police Department, and maybe if you have any knowledge of the GPD, what are some things that you all are doing to really make your presence known as far as community policing goes?
Well, some examples, we knew that as the semester began that the move-in was a great opportunity to have positive interaction with students and parents when they arrived on campus. And so we've always tried to assist with traffic direction and giving people, you know, the ability to get around the campus. But this year, you know, we would go out and actually help students carry their belongings into their dorm room, you know, engage them in conversation and just give them an opportunity to see us in a different light. In addition to that, I mean, Carla and I had the opportunity to work together during the house calls. We went out and met with new students arriving on campus, introduced ourselves, gave them a gift bag, extended resources of the university to them. We've done the same thing with the COPS and the CAF program, where we eat lunch and dinner with students twice a month. Just sit down. It's not really a lecture, or it's more of just a conversation to get to know us and learn more about the police department. And very happy about the community cookout that we had with students in front of the fountain. We had 275 attendees. When we hung out one afternoon on the weekend and got to know the students, played some yard games with them. It was very positive, and we intend to continue these efforts in addition to our student advisory board, where we meet and give some opportunities to discuss some very difficult issues.
Thank you for that. Steve or anyone else have any kind of comments that they'd like to contribute around the community policing and maybe your thoughts around community policing?
I think that's a very good thing. Just thinking back to the many years ago when I was on campus, especially as a black male on campus, you know, there were no interactions like that with the campus police department. There were a few select ones that we knew that engaged with us on a different level, that we could have conversation with, we would see out and about, and, you know, we had conversations and relationships with them that were very different than your normal police officer on campus. But as a whole, I think it's very important for especially young students to see the people that are policing them in a small environment in that different light, in a helping way, in a more conversational way, to honestly feel comfortable reaching out to them when they're in need. Because with today's climate, a lot of times you may have a need or a want to call law enforcement, but you may feel just as uncomfortable dealing with them as you do with the situation you want to call them about. So I think that can help ease those type of tensions and those type of thoughts, especially in the minds of young college students.
And Dominique, I want to even echo, looking at students, they're taking the initiative as well. I work with a group of students I advise, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, and they have made efforts to reach out to Greensboro Police Department and have a dialogue and conversation around interactions, what's expected, what would be helpful for them in understanding the role of police officers in serving the communities, and then how they can begin taking some of that responsibility as well. And so I just want to acknowledge that and give kudos to those young men who are taking an initiative and taking it upon themselves to begin having those conversations as well.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned just feeling comfortable reaching out to them. I attended a training here on campus, BRAVE training for faculty and staff, which is around rape prevention, intervention, and that type of thing. But one of the things that we address is being a bystander, and this could apply to a lot of different things, not just rape, but being comfortable enough to know that if you're in a situation where others are being threatened and you call for help, that you aren't going to be the one who they maybe identify as a perpetrator, or that you feel comfortable that when I call for help, they're actually going to provide help, and I'm not going to be a roadblock to getting the action that needs to take place done. So I think that's very important.
Crystal, I think one more thing that Dominique is pointing out a little bit is kind of this idea of being proactive and reaching out, and I mean, that's what I hear Chief Lester doing, is sort of creating these opportunities when people don't maybe have a specific need, because when things happen or you have a need, that's an immediate kind of experience, and you're not necessarily going, it's like any other skill that you practice. Like if you engage with a community routinely, it's just going to be that much better for you and for others if you kind of know who to call and, people's names. And so now, I mean, it's even made me more aware, sometimes I arrive at campus early and, I'll see people out and about just kind of getting campus ready for the day, or, security opening up different things, and, just say hello and have a conversation. We all are part of UNCG, and that experience is difficult. We're not used to those kinds of conversations all the time. We're in a hurry. We're trying to get where we need to go. People are thinking about their day or about their work or what classes they have to be at. But I just always try to tell people, walk through campus, greet everybody you meet. We have something in common. So I really resonated with that idea that, when you have a need, you kind of have to know what to do, and you have to practice that, reaching out.
And if I can add, one thing that resonated with me, especially after we just had the conversation about the Black Lives Matter, is this sense of community. I think as we look at what's happening in the broader society and to look at the initiatives happening on our campus, how might students, especially those who are often marginalized based on their race, who perhaps have some conflict or dissonance with engaging with police, or perhaps out of fear, out of distrust, to hopefully see another narrative in this particular community where they spend a lot of their time. And so, I hope that this concept of community policing also helps those who are active in like the Black Lives Matter movement, or looking at addressing racial inequity and racial injustice, how they can see some allyship in that area as well.
Thank you, Carla. And so I will say that Chief Lester, your department has been transparent in many respects. And one of the things that's going to change here shortly in the coming days is the laws around body cameras. And I know that the UNCG Police Department is equipped with body cameras. And so I think talking about the community policing aspect and transparency, when we think about some of the things and the injustices that we are currently fighting as a society and as a nation, that some of the laws that are now being enacted around body cameras are kind of, could play a role in either continuing to build that trust or maybe affecting that trust in a negative way. So I'd love to hear, you know, kind of your thoughts around the new law that will be taking place here in the coming days.
Sure. And our policy mirrors that law, but that law gives me certain discretion. Our basic premise on the release of body cameras is that in the interest of transparency, we will release it, provided that it doesn't jeopardize criminal prosecution, involve privacy or confidentiality of a person who's uninvolved in the, you know, incident, or if it involves something that's of a sensitive nature, you know, maybe like a juvenile or someone's private residence, you know. But if there's no compelling reason not to release the footage, if it's a consensual encounter, it's not pending court, there's no privacy or confidentiality or sensitive material in there, then it's our position that we will share that video and we will make it available for those to see. Now, obviously, the law allows for people who are in the video to be able to do that under certain circumstances. But we want to try and extend that to create that transparency, to build that trust, to continue, you know, establishing the legitimacy of our department.
Thank you for that. Did anyone else have anything to contribute around community policing?
I do want to say that if you haven't seen the 21st Century Policing Guidelines and Recommendations, they're a really great resource, and other departments are embracing those. They have specific action items that go beyond local law enforcement, and they do have some specific recommendations that are directly geared towards local law enforcement. And we are taking inventory, and so should others, to make sure that they are pursuing those.
Thank you. All right. Next, we are going to move, unless there are folks who are attending would like to contribute, we're going to move on to HB2. So what is HB2 and how has it affected you know, the state of the university and how we operate and the folks we serve, both faculty, students, and staff? Would anybody like to kind of start that conversation? So HB2 is what has been dubbed, I guess you could say, the bathroom bill. And that's what most people know it for. And so while that has affected everyone's lives, either directly or indirectly, if they are residents of here in North Carolina, that's what it's known for. But that bill goes into other detail around employment discrimination and things of that nature. So I'd like to start this part of the conversation by just asking from a higher ed standpoint, how have you seen HB2 impact the university, both NCA&T here in Greensboro and UNCG?
I think on our campus, it started some dialogue. And, of course, the initial dialogue was around the bathroom and those parties that were affected by that specific portion of it, because that's what the national news and everybody's been talking about. But I think the good dialogue started when it went to the things that you just spoke of. What else is behind that bill? So things such as if a woman is fired for discriminatory purposes, this bill is eliminating any recourse that she may have. Or any other if someone's fired because of their religion, you know, it's taking away the recourses that they have to remedy those particular issues. And so I think it was very good. One of the forums we had on campus went into informing the background details of that bill that weren't being talked about a lot publicly. And so now I think that equips the students to be able to have more informed conversations when they go out in the community, when they talk to their friends, when they talk to their family about it, who always just bring up the bathroom portion of that bill. Because with local elections coming up, you know, these are some things that you must think about. And everyone, I think, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are so focused on presidential elections, but your local elections really affect how you live your everyday life. A lot of us aren't realizing that. And so I think having those conversations on campus with our young voters and having them equipped with the knowledge to spread to those that they are interacting with, I think that was one of the positive things that we've seen on our campus in regards to the HB2 bill.
Crystal, can you hear me? It's Steve Flynn.
Yes, Steve.
Hi, I wasn't sure if I was on. I think I'm kind of an old man on this technology stuff, so forgive.
Okay.
But on the HB2, as someone who is in the classroom and teaches, you know, this generation, we're not even 2 years past, like, the, you know, gay marriage being legal, and this issue of, like, you know, you hear increasingly this thing called the fluidity of gender and other things. It seems like this is a generation that really wants to talk about these things. And so, as Dominique was saying too, you know, it's actually opened up some real space for some good dialogue about these things, and students are, you know, they're wanting to engage. I think we continue to be in a cultural moment where we are racing in directions we don't know where we'll yet arrive.
Crystal, this is Julie. I just wanted to say that it's very unique in terms of our educational positioning, because in higher education, this is really kind of a conflict or a challenge between federal rights and state rights, and no place more do you sort of see that in kind of these educational institutions that are guided by federal policy but also exist within certain states. And so it's definitely, and I'm talking about things like Title IX and intercollegiate athletics, for example, and these other kind of places where HB2 has now created other difficulties for folks. You know, people not wanting to necessarily come to North Carolina, and other states having to take positions about whether or not they want to support students that are enrolled in public universities in North Carolina. And so that doesn't feel inclusive to me. And so HB2 is creating not just situations where our students can understand the importance of elected officials and how they make decisions that impact people's lives, but also, you know, helping them and also, you know, faculty, staff, and alumni sort of wrestle with what kind of university do we want to be when other outside forces are impacting the things that we can and cannot do. So that's been a challenge. It's a real learning opportunity, and you have to kind of have this open mind about what guidance can you give people who are trying to make good decisions on behalf of students, I think.
Thank you for that, Julie. Does anyone else have anything to add to the discussion at this point?
Crystal, I would add that students are very much aware and engaged, and that's been really encouraging for me, is to see that the amount of responsibility students have taken it upon themselves to know more about policies and laws as they affect their day-to-day lives. When I was an undergrad, this was not something that was brought up, and so it's been refreshing to see our students take an active role in addressing things that affect them, their friends, their family members, et cetera. Again, their day-to-day movement on this campus and off of this campus seriously.
Thank you. And I agree. And it's, as Julie mentioned, you know, it's one of those things that you wrestle with in terms of, you know, we are a state institution. We're part of UNC systems, and of course, NCANT is also part of that system. So, you know, this has affected the climate in which we operate. And what I'd like to know is, and I'm sure others would, what are some, maybe not specific instances, but what are some of the backlash that we've seen as a university, whether it be from a faculty, staff, or student standpoint, as a result of this bill being enacted?
If I may share just some of my observations, I'm not sure if I would name them as a backlash, but I think in response to HB2, when it was first issued in the late spring semester, and when students were really talking about it, I feel like fear was one thing that I really observed that our students was like an initial reaction. So I, you know, agree with what Porshe shared. I think that it offered opportunity for our students to get engaged, get more informed, to figure out how they can step up, take action. But initially, I think some of the backlash may have been a fear, especially those who may be members of our trans or queer communities that were perhaps thinking, what does this mean? Am I going to start being observed, or is there going to be bathroom policing? Am I free to continue to navigate life the way I was without this new heightened sense of attention or awareness? We did a program called Tunnel of Oppression in the late spring semester, and HB2, I think, was voted on about a week or so, and we included that. And to get some of the feedback and the reaction from students who participated in that event, because we included an exhibit to kind of just share what this bill was. And a lot of it was, you know, perhaps somewhat fear, somewhat confusion. What does this mean for me on this campus? Will I still, is there going to be, through a heightened sense of attention, will I, you know, need to now pay attention to where I go and what I do and think about my safety? So this is more so anecdotally, but I think this sense of initial fear and confusion, and how does that translate to how do I navigate my experience, is one thing that I observed.
Thank you for that, Carla.
And I would agree with what Carla was saying, just from our campus. When it first came out, I think the trans community, they had some questions about how am I going to be treated now that we're in the forefront in a not positive light to many people. And I went to a session about this on campus, and you know, you had those who had their thoughts on it. And so a question I posed was, before you even heard of HB2, how many times in your life have you had an incident in the bathroom, or issue, or even a thought using a public bathroom around this issue? You haven't, and nobody in that room had. And so, you know, that was kind of to say, if it was never put into the forefront, has this ever been a thought in your life? And is it something that has ever even occurred to you? Or if these instances have happened, have you even realized it? You know, so it's one of those things. I think the certain communities, they were fearful and they were worried. And I would say on our campus climate, I think that worry and fear has died down a lot. And I think that's through dialogue, which I'm happy to say is from our students. A lot of the programs, and this is with all the issues that we've covered, you're finding that students are leading these. Students are the ones that are hosting these programs and asking faculty and staff members to be a part, but they're leading the conversations themselves. And so that's one thing this generation that I'm very proud to see, and not just on our campus, but on campuses like UNC Greensboro and across the nation. The younger generation, even high school, even up down to middle schools, you're seeing students and young people leading these conversations and making sure that their voice is heard, but also making sure that they're educated on these particular topics and wanting to spread the correct knowledge and disassemble the fears that may be for certain populations on these subjects.
Thank you, Dominique. I think that we could all sometimes take a page from the younger generation and how they tend to be a lot more resilient and understanding and a more open mind. So thank you for that. Now we're going to transition the conversation just a little bit, but you know there will be some overlap. We want to talk about the LGBTQ+ community and with respect to diversity and inclusion. Maybe talk about what are some steps that are being taken to ensure that resources are available to this group, this community here at UNCG or at NPA&T.
One of my roles here in the Office of Intercultural Engagement has been in outreach and advocacy for LGBTQ+ students. And so we have a really large population of students on our campus that identify as part of the spectrum. And so what I've observed and heard from them in conversation has been, number one, an acknowledgement that we are here and we exist on the campus. I think a lot of times they are considered sometimes a silent minority group, and that it may not be readily apparent as to what a student's sexual identity or gender identity is at first glance. And so number one, just having open dialogue and conversations and creating spaces that they feel comfortable in engaging in dialogue around their own sexual identities and gender identities. And so that's one piece of it. We have been really proactive in how we are educating the wider UNC Greensboro community, and I would even say beyond that scope, not just UNC Greensboro, but other local entities as well, in our safe zone trainings, which goes over LGBTQ+ issues and things that we're trying to address on that campus. I know the police department has undergone safe zone trainings. Many departments, academic-wise and beyond, have undergone safe zone trainings, and we move that to go just beyond an introductory phase, but also to look at oppression and challenges that the trans community is dealing with. So we've kind of been proactive in then having those conversations and making sure that our campus is really truly inclusive to all students that come on the campus.
Thank you for that, Porshe. I know that I've attended the first part of Safe Zone training, and it was a great training. I learned a lot. I walked away feeling somewhat, I guess, encouraged to know that other faculty and staff members, I mean, it was a large turnout. And so that is very encouraging to know how we are supporting from a faculty staff standpoint that community. And then also from, you know, this expands just from kind of the student, staff, faculty standpoint, but for alumni, here in the alumni office, we have the LGBTQ Society, which we focus on programming and events for that community as well. And I know that we've collaborated earlier in the year on an event which was a great turnout for the students and an opportunity for our alumni to see what we are doing as a university to take strides to continue to become more inclusive of that community.
Crystal, I wanted to add a couple of other newer resources and talk a little bit about, I mean, first of all, we have great staff on this campus who are really implementing high quality programs. And one of the nice features to me about our programs is that they build upon each other. There is not just some, you know, information at orientation, or maybe new faculty may get information, but there's a real emphasis on continuous learning or lifelong learning. And as students come to UNCG, I think they can find different places. Some people want to learn outside of the classroom. Some people want to speak out and learn in a classroom. So there is a resource for faculty that is also partnering with Office of Intercultural Communication and another network on campus called the Learn Network, focused on LGBTQ+ research, teaching opportunities, and kind of community engagement. And all of these groups are trying to help faculty in particular bring these issues into the classroom and have discussions also in the classroom. So some of the things that we are hearing about is that students don't want to just separate who they are from what they are learning about and why they're here to get an education. They want to bring that into the classroom also. And so faculty, who may be older and not have, the opportunities that some of the young people have to just interact on a daily basis, they need opportunities to also interact and learn from each other. So there are faculty networks on campus also. So I think from both sides, the student side, faculty side, and then how our staff bring together these different groups. And then also what you all are doing in the alumni office. It's just all a part of kind of, learning and inclusiveness.
Thank you. And I have a question for Steve, but one thing I want to say is that I think the key to addressing any of these issues, while there are a lot of efforts that are organized to address these issues and bring attention to these issues, one of the biggest things that we can do is work collaboratively. And I think that UNCG is making great strides to kind of work collaboratively across campus, but I think we can be more intentional about that, not only at here at a university level, but a community level to address some of these issues. And I think that's very important. And so, Steve, what I want to ask you is, from a faculty standpoint, what are some things that you are seeing your peers do to really kind of bring this and incorporate this into the classroom and the learning environment?
Let me first qualify. I'm actually an administrator/faculty.
Okay.
So I teach a couple classes, but I hardly speak for faculty. But well, let me putting both hats on. One of the efforts that is currently underway is bringing what we call the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is an effort to increase intercultural competence among particularly students and faculty in the wider community. We are, in fact, one of my hats is we are presenting, we've trained up a couple cohorts, some I think 40 or 50 indeed, I think Carla, Porshe, a number of folks right here on this panel that are qualified administrators for the Intercultural Development Inventory and are presenting intercultural awareness workshops in about 55, 60 freshman classes this fall semester, as a way of introducing this idea of intercultural awareness, to at least plant the seed, if nothing else, early in their college careers. And then over the course of their 4 years or 5 or 6 or whatever, that through intercultural opportunities like study abroad or undergraduate research or community service, community engagement, intercultural engagement, we can try to encourage our students to come to recognize difference, to come to recognize the other, and of course taking advantage of the fact that indeed we're the most diverse campus in the public university system of North Carolina. We certainly, at least demographically speaking, have incredible opportunities on this campus to get our community, our students, our faculty, to bridge these differences, to put ourselves out of our comfort zone into other cultural spaces. The challenge, indeed, however, is, do we not just talk the talk, but do we walk the walk, right? And that is indeed our greatest challenge in many respects. We are, we're just a couple of years away from possibly becoming a majority-minority institution. We're very, very diverse, and this is very exciting. in some ways, I think we're ahead of our own country. And how we bridge some of these things, you know, is quite exciting as we go forward.
Thank you, Steve. And as you alluded to in terms of our student makeup currently here at UNCG, I think we're upwards of like 43% minority, and of that, 25% or so, I think, are African American.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And, you know, Porsche, I think you may have some statistics on what students have maybe self-identified in terms of the LGBTQ plus spectrum.
Yes, I haven't done the research, but our wellness department in the Division of Student Affairs had done some kind of self-identifying things and found that on the spectrum, about 15% of our students have self-identified as being a part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum. We haven't done a campus-wide survey, climate survey, but that's what they've received, and that's what's been shared with me recently.
Thank you. So yes, we're definitely, you know, we can tip our hats in that we are a very diverse university. I think the next step is continuing to build on that inclusiveness, and I think there are some amazing strides being taken from an administration level and as well as from various offices like OIE. So I know we're coming short on time, but I'd like to just close by offering our panelists an opportunity to maybe offer a few closing words around some of the areas that we've talked about. Maybe a quote that you could share to inspire others or what have you. Carla, would you like to start?
Sure. If I would just capture with what I heard today, I think we're in a really significant and important time. Societally, but also at UNCG. I feel like based on everything that's happening as it relates to race, as it relates to gender, sexual orientation, looking at what's coming up in our society based on politics, we didn't get a chance to go into that conversation. We're in a really important time, and what I'm proud of is part of what I've also heard some of my colleagues share and what I've observed, our students are seeing that as well, and they're engaged and they're taking advantage. Is it everyone? Is it all 19, approximately 1,900 students? Perhaps not, but I think we have a good number of our students who are seeing where we are in time and what impact they can have and how we as staff can continue to support their level of engagement. Might it be through dialogues, it might it be through just general support and guidance, and and I think we're paying attention to that, and we're looking at how we can continue to support our students as they're paying attention to what's happening. And I'm excited about that. I'm excited at the potential that we have and the potential of our students on this campus.
All right, Steve. Do you have any
along those lines, there's a couple of things I think are really important to our upcoming decade or so. We need, as we move forward with these exciting opportunities, we need to both in our hiring, seek a faculty and a greater university staff and community that represents indeed the amazing diversity of our campus, our students in particular. So that's a challenge. And for our facultariat and our staff that we have now, we need to provide as many spaces and dialogue opportunities as possible to help us. If you're of my generation, we grew up in a very different time than we live now, and we could use all the opportunities that we can get to learn to bridge difference, to learn to both classroom situations and outside the classroom, to seek greater intercultural competence and awareness for ourselves, first and foremost, starts with, and then for our students and the greater community.
Thank you, Steve. And Julie, any last words?
I guess I just wanted to say it takes a community, and I was excited to see, a partnership today with UNC Greensboro and, A&T, and kind of, that really appeals to me, to kind of get more people at the table. And for the participants today who kind of wanted to just come and check out what we do. I hope you'll, drop us a note and let us know what you didn't hear and what you did hear, because the students who are here on campus now are going to be our alum in just a little bit of time. And I hope, they have a community waiting for them too. So I guess I was just thinking about sense of community. I think Carla summed that up earlier. It was a nice phrase.
Thank you. Porsche?
I think in addition to community, I think it's this continued education, not only for our students that we engage with, but our own professional adult development. Paolo Freire would coin it to be the unfinishedness, and really embracing that we are all unfinished to a certain degree and we all have room for growth and development, and allowing sometimes students to be the teachers in those spaces. And so really encouraging that our own, like Steve said, our own personal growth and development, and challenging ourselves and letting students walk alongside us in that growth.
Thank you. Chief Lester?
I appreciate the opportunity to be on the panel, but I think that I'm optimistic and hopeful that the community outreach efforts that we're, striving for are going to improve the relationship, and at least here at UNCG, we're going to see the support of the staff, student, faculty for the police department, because really the police department without that, we don't have the authority that we need to make the campus safe.
Thank you. And Dominique, any last words?
Well, one, I think continued dialogue such as this is always helpful. One thing that I do with a lot of the students and even some of the faculty and staff members I engage with is I challenge them to look at some of the key words that you spoke of earlier in regards to inclusion and becoming an ally and an advocate for a category that you don't fall in. And that's not always going to be race or gender. That can also be age, social class, there's ability, disability. There's so many different areas that are affected throughout our lives and throughout the world that, be an ally to someone that you're not, whether that's monetarily, whether that's lending voice, lending ear, however you may seem fit to do so. But I think by becoming allies to those that we may not fully understand or we may not fully be able to engage with on a normal basis, but finding out more information and being able to support others the way that we want to be supported in our own.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate everyone's time today, especially our panelists, and thank you to everyone who tuned in. We look forward to you joining us in future installments of the Spartan Share series, and I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.